At some point, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice may start feeling like a game that repeats itself. You fight Genichiro multiple times. You return to the same rooftops, to the same arenas, to the same enemies again and again. Even bosses like the Guardian Ape or Juzus seem to show up more than they should. And at first it does feel like something is off, like the game is recycling content instead of expanding it. But the deeper you look, the less it feels like repetition, and the more it starts to feel intentional. So, is Sekiro actually reusing bosses, or is it telling a story through repetition? And my answer is next. Sekiro's repeated boss fights are not shortcuts, they are deliberate narrative devices that reinforce its world, its lore, and your role in it. And once you see that, the entire game feels different. The first thing that changed how I saw Sekiro was realizing this: the world itself is not progressing linearly. It's looping, collapsing, and repeating. Ashina is dying, not metaphorical, literally decaying from within. War is constant, death isn't permanent, resurrection exists, time itself feels unstable. So when you revisit locations like Ashina Castle, the same rooftops, it's not just level reuse, it's a world cycling its own collapse. Think about how many times you fight in the same spaces. The Ashina Castle rooftop alone becomes a recurring stage. At first it feels like, why am I here again? But later it becomes, why does everything lead back here? Because Ashina Castle isn't just a location, it's a center of power, conflict, and inevitable downfall. Every return shows a different state: peaceful tension, active invasion, full collapse. You are not revisiting the same place, you are watching it change, decay, and fall apart. And that is why repetition exists in Sekiro world. It mirrors a world that cannot escape its fate. The biggest complaint I've seen on Reddit discussions, and honestly felt myself, is fighting the same bosses multiple times. Genichiro, Guardian Ape, Juzo. At face value it looks like duplication. But the moment I've stopped treating them as boss fights and started seeing them as ongoing encounters, everything changed. Take Genichiro. You don't just fight him multiple times, you grow through him. First encounter, you are powerless. Final, you've suppressed him. That is not reuse, that is a rival arc told through gameplay. The same applies to other bosses. Even when mechanics overlap, the context changes. Different emotional stakes, different player skills level, different narrative meaning. You are not fighting the same enemy in Sekiro, you are fighting the same character at a different moment, or yourself at a different level. And that is why those fights feel familiar, but never identical. Because the real progression in Sekiro isn't stats, it's understanding. One of the most interesting things is to start counting similar enemies in Sekiro. Lone Shadows, Ministry, Shinobi, different variants appearing across the map. At first it feels like, why there are so many of the same enemies? But then something clicks. They're not random enemies, they are part of a system. For example, Lone Shadows aren't just reused mini-bosses, they are part of a group possibly tied by lore and lineage. That means repetition isn't laziness, it's consistency. The Sekiro Shadows Die Twice game is showing you military structure, hierarchies, factions operating across locations. When you encounter similar enemies in different areas, it's not duplication, it's world building. It's like seeing the same type of soldier in different battles. And of course they repeat, because they belong to something bigger. And once you start noticing this, Sekiro's world stops feeling like isolated encounters and starts feeling like a connected ecosystem. If you ever noticed that fights look identical in Sekiro, they're actually not. Many people point out that certain encounters feel like, oh, here we are again, and I get that feeling. But then you start paying attention. The differences are subtle. Arena layout, enemy behavior, additional mechanics, timings and pressure. Even something as simple as fighting the same enemy in the new environment changes everything. You're not just repeating a fight, you're adapting, relearning spacing, rethinking strategy. And more importantly, you're doing it as a better player. That is the key. Sekiro doesn't rely on new bosses to create challenge. It relies on forcing you to master the same system in new context. So repetition becomes a tool, not to save effort but to reinforce mechanics, test growth, build mastery. And that is why those repeat fights still feel intense, because they scale with you. And here is a part that really stayed with me. Some of the repeated locations like Ashina Castle aren't even straightforward. You're not just revisiting the place, you're revisiting a memory. You're stopping into events that already happened, might have changed, might not be even fully real. So when bosses and environments repeat in Sekiro, it creates a strange feeling, familiar but not identical. And that is intentional. Sekiro constantly plays with Memory with reality, past with present, identity with role. So repetition becomes a storytelling tool that says, this has happened before, but not like this. And that is why the game feels haunting, because it's not just repeating content, it's a repeating experience. So yeah, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice reuses bosses, it reuses locations, it brings you back to the same fights again and again, but it's not doing it because it ran out of ideas. It's doing it because repetition is the point. It shows a world stuck in cycles, characters locked in ongoing conflict, a player grounding through repeated struggle, and a story that is told through familiarity and change. And once you see that, like I did, those reused fights stop feeling repetitive, they start feeling inevitable. Thanks for watching, hit that like button and subscribe for more Sekiro Shadows Die Twice guides and lore videos, and stay sharp out there, Shinobi.